question 6. In 1964, taxes were cut aggressively. Consider the impact of the tax cut on consumer spending and shift aggregate supply or aggregate demand appropriately. The tax cut did not have much effect on the level of prices. It was more likely that the aggregate supply curve was steep or pretty flat. So we're going to draw so aggregate demand slopes down, aggregate supply slopes up. I'm going to draw it upward sloping for now. We'll likely change it to flat at the end. I think I'm going to make sure just to get these axes right. I think it's real GDP on the x-axis. Prices, right? That's supposed to say price level, so I'm going to try it again. So we've got price level, or prices on the y-axis, and real GDP on the x-axis. Aggregate supply slopes upwards, and aggregate demand slopes downwards. There is a cut in taxes. So tax cuts, when used properly, have stimulated the economy. Many have credited George W. Bush's tax cuts for moving the economy out of recession. Effectively, if there is a tax cut, you now have an effectively higher level of disposable income or income period. And some of that income you may save, but you would think that at least some portion of it will be spent as well. So this is going to constitute a shift to the right of aggregate demand. Call that AD prime. Tax cuts, when used properly, have stimulated the economy. In 1964, there was an 18% cut in personal taxes to spur growth. The legislation was designed to encourage an increase in consumer spending, which was believed to be a great success. The tax cut, or say reduction in taxes, according to the law, will shift the aggregate demand curve rightwards due to more disposable income and cause consumption and savings to increase. The aggregate supply curve will shift outwards because there is more incentive to work after tax cut than before, so production level increases. Also, a tax cut implies more income in the hands of the people. It's more savings along with more consumption, so there's more investment in the economy. Tax cut did not have much impact on the level of prices. It's more likely that the aggregate supply curve is flat, implying flexibility of output in response to changing tax rates. It can also be said that there's elasticity of aggregate supply. So we'll run through this example first, where our aggregate supply is somewhat steep. So we have our original price level here, P star, and our original GDP here, Y star. And there's been this increase to aggregate demand. And this increase is going to cause real GDP to rise, so output is going to go up, which is good when you're trying to get out of a recession. But as a result, the price level is also going to rise. However, if we are instead in a situation where we've got a nearly flat supply curve, so aggregate supply is instead like this. We would see still see that large increase in real GDP. However, with a flat curve, we're going to see a very small increase in the price level. So if the tax cut does not have much of effect on the level of prices, it must be that the aggregate supply curve was flat. Because we saw when it was steep, prices went up considerably and GDP went up considerably. When it was flat, GDP went up even more than the first scenario, but prices barely rose. On to question 7 here.